Welcome on back to the All Aussie Rules YouTube channel. This is our mid-season review for the Port Adelaide Power. They've got the bye this week, so we'll be running through their season so far. Who's been playing well, who needs to improve, what they've still got to come this year, and what we expect from them for the rest of 2024. As always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Every interaction helps, so I appreciate you all. Also, don't forget to check out both here on YouTube and on Spotify. We have 2 weekly episodes that go live. One of them on Monday, which is a review of the weekend football, and then another episode that goes out Thursday morning, which is the preview for the upcoming round. Also, don't forget to check out all the socials. We have Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all Aussie Rules on all of them. We're doing mid-season review time. As each team reaches the bye, we do a little rundown of their season so far. So far, this will be episode 6 of those. We've had 4 teams having the bye last week, which were Sydney, GWS, Brisbane and North Melbourne. This week it has been Fremantle so far, and this is Port Adelaide. There'll be still 12 more teams to come over the next 2 weeks, so don't forget to come back and check all of them out. Without any further ado though, let's jump straight into Port Adelaide's season so far. So they started the season off at a home game at Adelaide Oval against West Coast, and they won that one by 50 points. Never looked like losing this one. Massive favourites obviously going in, and lived up to that, won comfortably. Round 2, they went to Melbourne to the MCG to play Richmond. They got the win in this one by 30 points. Once again, reasonably comfortable. They were losing at halftime, but they won it reasonably comfortably. Round 3, they hosted Melbourne. This was the first blemish on their record. They started okay. It was pretty close most of the way, and they just got out-nudged in the end by 7 points. Round 4, they hosted the Bombers. This was Gather Round. At Adelaide Oval they played on the Friday night, and this was probably Port Adelaide's best win of the season, probably Essendon's worst performance of the season so far. Port Adelaide ended up winning by 69. It was close for the first quarter, but then the second quarter they blew them away, 39 points to 7, and from then on it was just one-way traffic all the way of Port Adelaide. Round 5, they hosted Fremantle, and Fremantle gave them an almighty run for their money. In the end, Port Adelaide just got over the line by 3 points. Could have gone either way this match. Both teams played okay. I think Fremantle were probably the better team on the day, just couldn't get over the line. Round 6 was down in Melbourne at the MCG against Collingwood. Came out of the blocks flying. They kicked 6 goals in the first quarter. They were up by 4 goals at certain points in the first and I think the second quarter as well. But Collingwood overran them in the end, winning by 42 points to give Port Adelaide their second loss of the season. Round 7, they hosted St Kilda. This was far from Port Adelaide's best result of the year. They won it by 10 points, which is all you can do in the end, is win the game of football. They kicked pretty poorly. They kicked 11 goals, 16 this day, and in the end they won, which is all that matters. But it wasn't the most prettiest of wins they've had. Round 8 was the showdown over at Adelaide Oval, and they never really looked like winning this game. They just were a few goals back all day. It was a low-scoring affair. They only managed 5 goals, 8 for the day. Wasn't their best performance, and Adelaide took the chocolates, made use of their opportunities and won the game. Then they had round 9 down at the Cattery. This was another great performance from Port Adelaide. So they bounced back from their loss to Adelaide with a 6-point win over Geelong at the Cattery. 6 points is a great win for them. It did look like it was going to be a lot more. They were basically 5 goals up at quarter time, extended it out to 7 goals at half time. And then Geelong just dominated the second half. Didn't quite get over the line though. So then they played Hawthorn over at Adelaide Oval. Weird game, this one. Hawthorn dominated the first quarter, kicked 5 out of the first 6 goals. Port Adelaide fought their way back throughout the game. They were still 4 goals down at half time. They were basically 5 goals down at 3/4 time, and then somehow they just kept coming, and ended up getting the win, kicking 2 goals in like the last 22 seconds to win the game by 1 point. It was an unbelievable finish. Go watch the last couple of minutes of that game if you want to watch a couple of minutes of entertaining football from one team and not so much from the other. Round 11, they headed down to Hobart to play North Melbourne, and as pretty much every game against North Melbourne for every team so far this year, it was one-way traffic. They won by 59 points, which was comfortable enough. Round 12, they then hosted last week Carlton on the Thursday night. It was pretty close all the way through to 3/4 time, and then that last quarter, Carlton absolutely blew them away to get the 36-point win, which put Port Adelaide not maybe into the best run going into the bye. The 3 weeks before, 3 wins was going good. They would have liked to have won the game going into the bye, I'm sure, but at the end of the day, they're going solid enough. They're 8-4 in a season where there's a lot of teams in that middle pack just behind where Port Adelaide are at 8-4. So it's a solid start. It's not perfect, but it's going okay for them. We'll have a look at some of their stats for the season. First of all, their quarter by quarters. First quarters, they started the season really well. Up until the Collingwood game, they won every first quarter, 6 in a row. Their first loss in their first quarter came against St Kilda. And since then, they haven't been great. They've only won 2 out of their last 6. So it's evened out a little bit there in first quarters. Second quarters, they're not outstanding either. They're 6-6, so break even. First halves, they're 5-6 with a draw. Third quarters, they, like first quarters, won the first 5. Since then, they've really struggled, winning just 2 out of their last 8. Third quarters. Fourth quarters, they don't do exceptionally great either. So overall, their quarter by quarter analysis isn't spectacular. Certainly doesn't read a team that's 8-4 for the season, but when they win quarters, they win them by enough, and that kind of tends to be what wins them games. Because you look at, for example, the game against Hawthorn 2 weeks ago, they lost the first quarter, they lost the third quarter. They won the second and fourth and won the match. There's probably better examples. Maybe not so much, but they tend to lose a couple quarters most weeks. I think they've won 2 games where they've 3 games, where they've won every quarter. Round 1 against West Coast, which is no massive achievement. Round 4 against Essendon, they won every quarter. And then round 11 against North Melbourne, they won every quarter. Having a look at some disposal markets. Overall, they are slightly positive in the disposals, plus 11.4 disposals per game. A lot of that was done in those first 3 weeks. They dominated this possession in those weeks. Since then, that overall negative, but nothing to be too concerned with. Mostly done in kicks. They do kick the ball a lot more than most teams. They have a high number. They're overall plus 18 per game in kicks, which leaves them at -7 handballs per game. Inside 50s is quite dominant for them just about every week except for 2. Overall, they're plus 6.75 inside 50s per game. The 2 times they lost the inside 50 count badly was Collingwood. They were -19, and then last week against Carlton, they were -15. There's 1 week where they drew, which was against Hawthorn, and 1 week where they lost by 1, which was the Geelong game. but every other game they kind of dominate the inside 50s. The first 6 weeks, first 5 weeks, they were averaging 15.8 inside 50s more than their opposition per week, which is a massive, massive number. It's kind of evened out over the last 6 or 7 weeks, but they're still one of the better teams overall at getting the ball inside 50 compared to their opposition. They have a very high disposal efficiency rate, certainly compared to their opposition. The 1 week they kind of got absolutely smacked in that was the Adelaide game, which was a little bit of a greasy game, but I mean both teams had the same conditions and it wasn't spectacular for them. They also weren't terribly great against Hawthorn and Carlton, so there's been a few games over the last little month that maybe is a little bit of a concern for them. They're one of the best forward efficiency teams in the league and one of the best forward efficiency teams in comparison to what their opposition puts up on the night. Last week they were outstanding, plus 15% on that. Their best week of the year though was against St Kilda. They were plus 19%, which is probably what saved them that day because it wasn't the best performance from them outside of that area. In the clearance game, in the middle, they're pretty even most weeks. They are slightly up, plus 2.75 per game. Centre clearances, weird stat, they're plus 1 per game overall for the season, but they have been dead level the last 3 weeks. So that's the Hawthorn, North Melbourne, Carlton games. I don't know what that says, but it's just an interesting little stat. Stoppage clearances overall, they're slightly up. Contested footy, they're down overall, mainly due to 1 week where they got absolutely smacked in that, which would have been the Collingwood game. They were minus 41 in contested football that day. You take out that game and they're going to be positive on the season. Only slightly, but still positive. Uncontested footy, they win that most weeks. They've had a couple where they've lost, but overall they're well in front. Turnover game is pretty solid for them. They break even most weeks. There's been a couple weeks where they were really good, like round 1 against West Coast. They dominated. But then there's the Collingwood game again where they lost that turnover count by 15. So that's a pretty big smashing in that regard. They outmark their opposition every week except for 1 round. And then tackle game, they're really good at that as well. They've had 2 weeks where they've got kind of smacked in the tackle game. One of them was round 4, which was against Essendon, which they won the game comfortably. And then last week against Carlton in round 12, they also lost the tackle count quite considerably. Where are we up to? They have had a couple big wins in the tackle count. The biggest was round 7 against St Kilda, they were plus 28, and 2 weeks earlier against Fremantle, they were plus 20. So yeah, that's a look at some of their stats. It's hard to really know what the go is with Port Adelaide. They've played some really good games so far this year. Obviously, the Essendon win was great. The Geelong win was good. But then they also have the games where they only just got over the line against Hawthorn at Adelaide Oval. They got beaten comfortably by Collingwood. They got beaten by Adelaide in the showdown by 5 goals. They lost to Carlton last week by 6 goals. So I just feel like it's just another season, kind of like last year for them, where they're good enough to probably make top 4, but have we seen enough to be convinced that they can win a final when it matters? I'm not convinced on that just yet, but there's still half a season to go. A lot of water to go under that bridge. A quick look now at some of the players for Port Adelaide. So far this year, I think Zach Butters has been their best player. He's been outstanding. Their whole midfield is dominant. Him, Ollie Wines is great. Jason Horne-Francis is good. Connor Rose has been fantastic. A little bit injured over the last 5-6 weeks, which has been costly for Port Adelaide's progress probably. Dan Houston's been great off the back flank. I think Ivan Soldo's been really good in the ruck. He's been an outstanding addition to improving here. William Drew's been good in the midfield. Burton's been solid in defence. Alir played really well last week. Overall, I don't think there's any real big holes in their team. Their forward line maybe not outstanding. Charlie Dixon's kind of struggling a little bit. But overall, most of their big names are playing very good football. We'll now have a look at what they have to come for the rest of the season. So, out of the bye, round 14, they go to GWS to play the Giants. That's going to be a really tough game. Giants obviously will be playing in Launceston this weekend, so out of the bye, hopefully a good game. It should be 2 top 8 teams going at it. We'll see how that works out. Round 15, they host Brisbane. They have to win that game. Brisbane just aren't quite up to the level this year of, at least in results. I still am bemused by the fact that Brisbane aren't winning more games than they are. St Kilda at Marvel Stadium. That, based on what we've seen this year, the earlier match at Adelaide Oval should be a close game. They then host the Bulldogs in round 17, which will be a tough game for both teams, really. Round 18, they go up to the Gold Coast to play the Suns. Round 19, they host the Tigers, which you'd expect they should win that one. Round 20, they play Carlton at Marvel, which will be really tough for them. Then they host Sydney, which will be a big challenge for both teams, I think. Sydney may already have top spot sealed by then, but they'll be very close to it if they haven't. Melbourne, round 22 at the MCG will be another tough one, so that's a really tough 3 weeks for their Port Adelaide, having Carlton, Sydney, Melbourne across the 3-week period. They then have the showdown, which is a big game against Adelaide. They obviously lost to them earlier this year. And then they finish with Fremantle over at Optus Stadium. So their last 5 weeks is going to end up looking like maybe one of the tougher 5-week periods in the AFL. And if I was a Port Adelaide fan, I'd be certainly wanting them to probably have 12 wins by round 19, which is only 4 out of the next 6 games do they need to win to be at that point. But that last 5-week period, obviously Sydney at home is a possibility to win. Adelaide in the showdown could go either way. Showdown tends to just be a toss of the coin on who wins. But the other 3 are really tough games. Well, even both the home ones are really tough. So I wouldn't be counting on any of those 5 being automatic wins to finish the season. So I still think Port Adelaide are probably going to finish close to the top 4. They'll probably finish 4th or 5th, maybe 6th. But I just don't see that they've improved from last year, where they went out in straight sets and didn't look great in the second half of the year. We'll probably see that again. That's my thoughts. I don't know what you think. Let me know in the comments. Are Port Adelaide going to be a peter-out team again? They show all this talent, they show all this ability, but they just have kind of struggled to put it together over recent years. So that's everything I think I've got to say about Port Adelaide in this mid-season review. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check out all my other videos. We're doing mid-season reviews. There's still 12 more to go over the next fortnight, so come back for all of them. The Fremantle one went live 2 days ago. And of course, there's my normal podcast that goes out every Monday and Thursdays, previewing and reviewing the weekend's football. It happens every week on YouTube and Spotify. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll catch us on the next one.